Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're all going down to the old US of A to discuss a scenario which I think is a little unknown, but it would affect America immensely. The Transcontinental Railroad is not discussed that heavily in history groups, but if you know a smidge about the rise of American industry in the 19th century, you know that the American railroads were really important. Really important. So important that I really can't predict accurately what this scenario could entail. I'll try my best, but modern American culture is going to be wildly transformed. Railroads supplied many American industries. Steel, oil, and many other resource-based industries were directly affected and helped by the big railroad industry. Even on a non-economic stance, the railroads were a big contributor in Manifest Destiny. Before the railroads, the trip out west was extremely dangerous, as any Oregon Trail player would know. That very looming aspect of death made the Oregon Trail not very popular, but with railroads, all of that changed. Before you wanted to go to, let's say, Wyoming, you would have to buy a bunch of food, ammo for your gun, a wagon, an animal to pull the wagon, and food for that animal. Then you had to go on a tiring 6-month journey, where you can easily be robbed, accidentally shoot yourself, or get murdered by a group of Native Americans. But with the railroad, all you needed to do was pack up a suitcase, take the railroad all the way out to the west in only 6 days. That's only one of the impacts the Transcontinental Railroad made. 6 months? Turned into 6 days. Another impact was the Native Americans living there. Some of these guys were forced there by good old Andrew Jackson, and they had adapted to the plains. They became really good at horseback riding as well as buffalo hunting. But with the new American settlers coming to the west, land was definitely an issue, as expected. But those buffalo seemed really good for an American wanting to sell something. Buffalo were hunted and harvested for their hide and shipped to the east for a crazy profit. And that greatly limited the Native American food source. Not only that, Indian reservations, where did those come from? Well, talking about that totally out of left field question, they came from this movement out west. The American settlers and government would take more land from Native Americans and then send them to some shitty land down in Arizona. The railroads boosted industry, and industry includes factories. And it may just be me with my non-existent eyes to discern color, but when factories are involved, I'm pretty sure some red lovers start to develop. The Gilded Age directly led to the Progressive Era, where new labor laws were instituted and monopolies that essentially controlled America were broken up. Those are what I consider the main things affected by railroads. Let me state it again really quickly. Railroads meant a lot more migration to the Great Plains, the further destruction and forced migration of Native Americans, the creation of gigantic monopolies, then a subsequent era of reforms for the working man. All that happened because of railroads. So, this leads me to the question, what if the Transcontinental Railroad was never built? But then I thought, a better title and a more realistic one would probably be, what if the Gilded Age never happened? Let me just say I am not an economist, I am not a professional at this, and I'm just trying to make sense of an alternate history scenario that ties into a lot of Gilded economics, which, let me reiterate, I am not an expert at. I am bound to get things wrong in this video, so if I do, tell me in the comments. Just for the sake of this scenario being more interesting, we'll make it the majority of railroads, not just the transcontinental one. First, let's go into the part of America that everyone forgets about, the Great Plains. As I stated before, this area of America was inhabited by many Native Americans because Andrew Jackson forced them there. Those Native Americans learned to thrive on the Great Plains, but when the railroad was built, they were essentially wiped out and forced to live in some shitty land. Now, let's make all of that disappear. Well, not all of it. Everything after them adapting to the Great Plains. In this new timeline, the Great Plains is barely inhabited by American settlers, and is instead inhabited by Native American tribes. The Great Plains, with little to no Americans there, take way longer to become states. Like, way longer. I cannot predict how long. Instead, the Great Plains become a part of the Union that is barely a part of the Union. It isn't easy to govern, and a lot of the time Native Americans revolt and attack the very little American settlements present in the territory. They could proclaim independent nations, but that's probably not likely. The Great Plains during the Gilded Age, Progressive Era, and maybe beyond, is a dangerous and unruly part of America that is a battleground between the small but scientifically advanced American settlements and the large amounts of Native Americans in the territory. In a very basic economic sense, the railroads allowed easy transport of goods, which allowed businesses to expand. The only reason you can shove a Big Mac down your goal in New Jersey as well as Nevada is because of the railroads. Taking railroads out of the business essentially keeps America in the old business model, which is small businesses not being able to expand. And this will hurt the American economy. Every Hoi 4 player knows that America is a shit ton of steel and oil. And with no real desire to process them, it doesn't become a hit. For most of the Gilded Age, Republicans don't really consider the idea of railroads as a good thing, and Democrats just stick to their Farm 11 ideals. Even the idea of socialism isn't that prevalent in America. Socialist ideas were developed in factories where wages were low. Of course, there would still be factories in Gilded Age America, so socialism would definitely be, well, there. But not on the front stage because there won't be as many factories, many workers inside of them. Maybe socialist ideas are taken from other countries, but mainstream socialist ideas never have any roots in America. With the addition of this, there wouldn't be a progressive era, so say goodbye to Teddy Roosevelt. A lot of factory reforms that occurred in America during and after the Progressive Era would probably not exist whatsoever. Of course, America could develop its own political ideology. Immigration wouldn't be as prevalent in the Gilded Age without as many jobs, but there would still be a lot of people born inside the territory. And with not a lot of industrial jobs to accommodate that, they start to work on farms. And if the farms are bad, if the farms don't give them a lot of rights, we could see a form of American-born socialism occur, focusing on farming and farmland. America as a whole in the late 19th and 20th century isn't as much as a superpower as it could be. It has lots of potential, with vast amounts of resources in its territory, but because neither political party is willing, no law or effort is made to counteract this. Instead, America is economically behind most of the world, and it stays that way. Immigration isn't as big because there isn't many jobs in America, but people are being born in America, and those new babies are working on farms instead of factories. And those farms give little pay and force them to work long hours. Sounds familiar? A form of socialism brews on American soil focusing on farmland, called collectivism. This idea is very similar to socialism, except it doesn't brew in factories. Collectivists start to dominate politics, and the South, having a definite bias towards farm owners, isn't able to insert themselves as a definite supporter of collectivism. But the Republicans do. This puts America politically similar to what it was in our timeline, with the new progressives being in the Republican Party. But the main difference between this no railroad America and the Gilded America is the economics and social qualities dividing East and West. The Great Plains and everything west of it becomes harder to govern because of Native Americans. The government tries to change this by attacking Native Americans, but this is different than the swift nature of the mixture of settlers fighting Native Americans as well as assimilation. The Great Plains becomes a fighting ground, a long war between the American armies and the Native American tribes. That occurs for a long time. Meanwhile, economically, America depends on its vast farmland for trade. But with the addition of collectivism, America's population is all essentially starving farmers. But satisfied starving farmers. To the rest of the world, America is one large group of radical farmers, and that's about it. The only thing America could become a great power in is food, but that doesn't create a good economy. And that's it. That's essentially what America could be like if the Gilded Age never occurred. I'm sorry that this video was short, but I was really busy this week, as you can see by this video being delayed. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Bye. Sorry again for it being